For this interview, we have Virginia Singh, also known as Gigi, who is an architect and is currently working in New York City. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, so could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Um, I'm from Panama City, Panama, and I went to St. Mary's School for high school and middle school and all that stuff. And then I went to Florida State because I thought wanted to do engineering, but I ended up wanting to do architecture, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but I just went for it. Um, I went to University of Arkansas because they had in-state tuition at the time. And then I loved it and I graduated from architecture and I worked for a year and I decided to go into grad school for architecture and urban design at Columbia University.
All right, thanks. So can you tell us a little bit about this process of university or what that experience was like for you? Because many people have these questions of like, oh, when I go into any kind of artistic career, I need to already know how to draw. I already need to know how to use the software and the program. So what was it like for you?
For me, I had never touched a pencil in my life. No, not really. But I never I never drew anything. I would watch Carrie draw all the time, 24/7. I'd be like, you got this girl, you draw really well. And all my drawing lessons was probably from watching her. Not in a computer. And then I learned everything you learned in school. You learned how to draw, you learned uh, architecture is also really abstract. You do plan section elevations, and you're like at first you're like water plans, water sections, water elevations. What are things supposed to look like? And you learn everything in first year, and you once you know how to do the basic work, you understand the mental concepts of how things are three-dimensionally. You can go into the computer and to the software and you just get started on it. After you have a purpose, you just practice it and you get it done.
Yeah, so very much like architecture being so abstract, it's not something you learn particularly in high school. So it makes sense that you get to learn the ropes of it in university, really.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna share screen so we can have a look at your portfolio. I know you had experiences with abroad where university took you to countries like Italy and Mexico in order to do studies in general for architecture. And you also had an experience to go to India as well to work on a project. So we're just gonna go through your portfolio, making comments here and there so we can learn a little bit more about what it's like to be an architect and the type of work that you do, not just after you graduate, but also while you are in university, right? So over here, can you tell us a little bit about the O shed?
Okay. So the OSHED was a project we did in fifth year. I was like about to graduate, and it was with a Scandinavian architect. Architecture is very hands-on. It's very important to like be very hands-on, like to try things, to model things, and to get exposure to construction, building things by hand, and understanding how things come in together. It's very collaborative too. Like it was like a group of 10 of my classmates, and we were in this class called design build where we dismantled a 60-year-old farm and we created this shed for this artist called George Dombeck in Arkansas.
Mm, right. So over here we see another example of the anti-sauna, which you can probably explain this better than me. You have to take considerations of the weather, right?
Well, it's very important when you start a project to understand the site, where it's located, the where does the sun come in from, where does the wind come in from different seasons. What is the purpose of the project too? For example, this one was an anti-sauna, so it was about bringing air into the space because you want it to be really cool during summer. Is that possible? How can you make that happen? And then the other thing that's really important is the sun. How does the sun enter the space, and how do you cover from the sun and shade, and um how
Yeah.
does it like affect heat in this tower the least?
Mhm. Right. So here are also other examples of like the work you have to do and the studies you have to do in order to put together the anti-sauna. Can you tell us a little bit about this Little Rock High School for the arts. I can see here you were a second runner up, and this was something you did while you were in university.
Yeah, this was like one of like this was like a really big project for me. It was fourth year, and you had to deal with like program, how the kids enter the spaces. Then you also had to think about security, like you kids can do kind of like shady stuff in school, so you want to be aware of that stuff. Like very important to have like transparency, being able to see through the spaces, and we were also really interested in like how to have passive ventilation and how to like have very few like energy loads, so how the sun comes into the space and how can you like reduce energy loads in classrooms. And
Yeah, it's really interesting that even when you were in university, these are things that you were working on already. And these, to my eye, they look very professional. Um, Over here, can you tell us about the Jessler Library branch?
Mm. Now that it's very funny that you mentioned about professional, because that's the software. This project as well also uses that software. It's called a Revit, which is used nowadays from at work. It's very collaborative. Everything is in the cloud. It's in BIM 360, and you use it to like collaborate with like different clients, different consultants. Like it's very useful program, and you use it like during school, and it's great. And this project was very challenging to do in Revit, because it was like I was very interested in like doing things that are not typical. Like I was exploring like structure. What if the structure was slanted? What happens if the building like meets the ground, and how does a building meet the ground, and what can the ripple effects be sectionally? And that's why it was like so like up and down and all crazy. I was also interested in like, what if the mullions were not straight, and what if they were slanted all over? What if the structure was slanted? I was like, it was like a very what if project. And you were very interested in like having the exposure to the outside, because it's Seattle, it's like cloudy and rainy all the time, so you didn't really have to think about shading as much. But yeah, school is a time that you should just like explore, just take a stab at things, get things off your mind, and like have so much fun.
All right, so over here, we're just going to go through the next couple of projects. So we have the Heart Loop, which was kind of like trying to force people into uh, walking and making use of walking spaces in New York, right?
Well, it's kind of hard like using that term force, because you can't really force anyone, but it the option is there. And it was a great project to like understand how weather changes, how seasons change, the also like understanding it was very interesting understanding like decay of the materiality as well of whatever you use with the seasons and everything,
Mhm.
understanding water, the relationship of water, and how it's beneficial for humans to be close to water. um but it's also very like a collaborative doing these kinds of projects, because you have to deal with like people from all different backgrounds. And you also get involved in like who sponsors all these urban design projects. And here, for example, like we were thinking about like how the Catherine Street Community Center would like partner with us and create this bunch of amenities for the residents in this area. You think about like things people need urbanistically.
Mhm. A lot of considerations here. Um, and as you said, it's a lot about considering different types of or variations of what an environment can look like, as we see here in these kit of parts, and just see which one fits best. And for the most part, it's also like, what does the client want? Because at the end of the day, you have to do what it is that the client wants. Over here, we have this Forest of Bliss, which was a project you did when you were in Colombia. You went to India for this. And as we were talking about this earlier, and yeah, if you explain it a little bit.
Yeah, we were looking at the ancient maps and how there were water bodies that once existed, and then we are seeing how like the pilgrim routes throughout the like years like connect through all these water bodies. And we were interested in like like reforesting the whole place, because the whole place suffers from flooding, from mud all over, and like it's just kind of like, what can we do? And we were looking at the new urban design plans from the city that were being like that was gonna happen like later on, and we were like fighting the land use map, like why is there so much yellow and there's not a lot of green. And we were like, what if we reforest Varanasi, because it's one of the holiest cities in India, and there's so many pilgrim routes and paths, and we were thinking about like how culture can help us help them reforest Varanasi. And we are also looking at remediation and how to like clean the water bodies close to the areas. And we were studying the flora, the fauna. We were using also historical paintings to like help us identify different species.
So it's architecture is very much also like not building new things necessarily, but like working on what is already there and adding to it. This one here was your project when you went to Mexico and you guys had no computers. You were basically like freestyling it, you know, with pencils and whatnot, and like these dioramas. And this was in your undergraduate degree. Over here, we have Ozark Modern, which is an actual coffee shop. So if you guys Google Ozark Modern, you will most likely see like pictures of it. And it must be really exciting to see people like walking into these places that you helped design, especially during your internship, right? When you were so like new into the architecture field. Um, then we have here Lotex, which is like an Italian company. And I love about them how they are repurposing containers, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna go through these real quick, but you can tell us a little bit about this infrastructure over here.
Yeah. So that's an apartment build complex that got built in Johannesburg, South Africa. It was like really exciting because then you got exposed to like all these different people, like culturally. Like I didn't know anything about South Africa until like I started working on this project, and how it's also booming like artistically, this area. But the project designer from this, he like left to teach at another state, Florida. And then me and another intern were like left like how
In
do we do
charge.
this? Yeah. And like the partner was like, you guys got this, you guys can do this, like come on. And we were like, yeah, we can do this, come on, give it to us. And then we just like started, like he explained to us like what was needed, what needed to be coordinated. It was the first time we ever dealt with like consultants, and like what kind of questions to ask them, like what do we need from them for during certain meetings, and how architectural drawings should look like, and what is needed, and what's the office standard is very important as well.
Yeah.
And then we were like removing pieces of the containers, and then my boss was like, have fun, do a few artwork pieces and we'll put them in the courtyard, the courtyard of the building. And I was like, okay, sounds great. And they ended up going for these ones, which are like a little bit dangerous, but nothing bad has happened so far, and that's what the client wanted. But yeah.
End of the day, you're just the architect and you get to do what the client wants you to do,
um,
right? So the other interesting thing about architecture is that you don't necessarily have to always be working on designing something or buildings. You can also work in art exhibitions with obviously have an artistic aesthetic to them. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do for your work right now?
For my work right now, well, right now I'm working on hospital project. I'm doing a lot of like interior design as well. It's also New York City. I'm designing also like the facade of like a hospital project like 2 blocks south from Central Park, and a lot of them in Long Island. A lot of New York University hospital work. Um, but I've worked also before in marketing, doing sustainability sections for my previous office, Ennead Architects. Right now I'm working at Perkins and Will. And yeah, each company you work for is very different. All of them have different standards, and all of them are amazing like experiences to have. Like you learn a little bit about architecture in different ways through all of them.
Mhm.
Um,
Right. So just to finish off, because it sounds like you've had like a smorgasbord of like a lot of different experiences in different fields that are related to architecture. So is there any piece of advice you would give to anyone who wants to study architecture?
I would recommend you to just just do it, just get it done. Like there's no right or wrong answer in architecture and design. Just like do it. And then once you get out of architecture school, like you're lost. And some people are like very intense. Like, are you passionate about like high-end residential, passionate about commercial buildings, passionate about you're passionate at when you get out of school, you're passionate about anything. Just do it. You just go grab the job. You what you want is you want experience, you want to learn, you want to like you just want like your basics to be there. Smart, start somewhere small. And I also have to say that i I was gonna say something
I guess
that
just be passionate about
oh
architecture.
like if you also like if the opportunity is not there and you're like uh, not sure of what you want, participate in competitions. Design competitions are everywhere. Just get it out there. Just
Get experience.
yeah, it's
Yes.
added experience.
Right. So thank you very much, Gigi. This has all been very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah.